have to, I no one ever thinks I'm adorable when I go on stage. Like, who's this? Like,
oh, really?
Yeah, I always get the like, who's this like old ass goth that works from home clearly? Like, what is that's my vibe. And like, yeah, it's hilarious. They're all like, I don't get it. What's going on? I don't get it.
Yeah, so just one
yourself an old ass. I'm sorry, Orchid. I didn't mean. I just had to ask real fast. Because I'm old, so I need clarification. So Eerie, did you just call yourself an old ass goth?
Yeah, like I was goth when it was called death rock. That's how old I am. Jason knows what I'm talking about, right?
Your new nickname.
Yeah. When I was
also Devine, she's surrounded by like 18, 19-year-old boys at stand-up comedy. And so you don't have to be that old to feel like an old ass fill in the blank.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely true. I mean, and I started comedy when I was 45. So it was like, I was already feeling like, who are these children? You know, it's weird. It's really weird. So, but anyways, yes. Please, I have so many questions for you, but please continue what you were saying.
So kind of like what I was saying about, it's a healing state. Like laughter is involuntary and it's a magic power to make people laugh, right? And it's also so vulnerable to get in front of people and hope you make them laugh, right? or show up in front of a classroom and hope you chill them out with the yoga or what, you know what I mean? But it's like a very, I create a healing space. And I feel corny using the phrase healing space, but it's just what it is. I'm healing people with dick jokes. You know, that's
absolutely 100%.
Yeah, I forgot what the other thing I was gonna say is, but oh yeah, I was gonna say just like a little bit about. I did the theater and directing. I've taught screenwriting and directing, and then I've directed about 9 short films.
Oh, cool.
And then I've also lately I'm just really focused on stand-up, and I've been producing some shows as well. So I really enjoy, I like facilitating community as well. Like I like bringing people together. And just a little bit specifically about what this episode topic is, like, because I look like a white person, but I'm actually, Latinx and Asian. Like I'm very sharply sensitive about people's cultural differences. So if one person acts a certain way, but I know their ethnic background, I'm like, actually what they're doing is appropriate for their culture. Then I'm like, I will explain to other people, like, no, it's respectful to do this in their culture. But then I also know that guy shouldn't be acting that way. Like that guy's acting outside of that mainstream for that culture. And there's just subtle difference between cultures, and I'm just super hyper aware because I look like a white person and I have to try to adapt to whatever situation I'm in.
Wow. Oh my God, you've gotten so far into the podcast already just with your intro. It's great though. Luma, tell me a little bit about you. Tell the peeps out there.
Hello, I'm Luma Jaguar. I am probably most well known in the Bay Area for being a burlesque performer. I love stunt work and I love martial arts. So a lot of my burlesque is either going to be comedy, so a lot of clowning, or maybe I'll just get up on stage and do stage combat, like a choreographed sword fight. In the very few venues that allow fire, I also eat fire. I do fire sword. I koi. I love the water, so I also love to free dive. So whenever I can, I do underwater modeling. And when I was at the height of my breath holding, I could hold my breath for 4 minutes. But the panini has ruined everything, so I'm sure it's like 2 minutes at this point. I was working full time as a performer, just like corporate events, like being a character that walks around and interacts with people, doing parties and that sort of thing. And now like a lot of other people, I'm like, well, what do I do now? I was getting burnt out on gigging all the time because, as you two know, like, you have to hustle. You have to constantly be working. It's feast or famine. So it'd be like in the months of October and December, I would work multiple gigs every single day because I knew that January, February, there would be no work. So I'm tired of being burnt out like that. So I'm just trying to, at this point, figure out what my next career is. And at the moment, I'm a lifeguard. Speaking of feeling old next to your coworkers, everybody's literally in high school.
Do you wear your mermaid tail while lifeguarding? Because
oh my God, I would feel so much safer knowing you had a mermaid tail. You just have to pop out though. That's the only thing
you shouldn't. You should not feel safe with mermaids in the water. That's the direct opposite of what a mermaid's gonna do.
Mermaids, yeah, they eat people, but
cultural differences, right, Orchid?
Cultural differences. That's I love, by the way, with all of those things, so let me get this straight: water, fire, stage combat, kick-ass.
I don't do air. I can't do aerials. I'm scared.
No, but I'm thinking spy. I don't know if you might want to think about that maybe for the next thing. I'm just putting it out there.
Apparently, to be a spy, you have to be like unremarkable and blend into the background, and I've kind of ruined that by being completely tattooed.
You don't have to be a real spy. You'd be like a movie spy for sure.
Oh yeah, yeah.
For sure.
Orchid, let's make a movie spy out of me.
Sure.
Like,
I'd be so, if you wrote something for yourself, I would direct it and produce it for you. Absolutely.
Oh, okay. What are we gonna call it?
Whoa, what the hell just happened like on the show?
We just made a movie, guys.
We just made a movie. So I know that we I don't know what's wrong with me right now. I'm under the weather. I'm on cold medicine. So I know that we had kind of touched on this, Orchid, and the reason we even did this podcast was because we had this discussion one day after a show. Luma, you also are you don't look like an ethnic person. You look like a white person. I'm just gonna say that.
I do.
You look, I was trying to put it in like a PC way.
The term is white passing, but straight up, I look like a white lady. Like that's just
a white lady. You look like a Karen. Like I mean,
I was called a Karen recently at the dog park.
Oh no!
At the dog park. Wow.
This woman's dog was attacking my dog, and I told her to make him stop, and she called me a Karen.
Oh wow. That doesn't make any sense. Anyway, I mean, we don't look like the regular, but you know what I mean. But
right.
But yeah, tell me a little bit about your background, your ethnicity. Like, why do people think you're white? Why shouldn't they think that? Why shouldn't they assume that?
Why shouldn't they assume that? Because we're all mixed at this point, I think. Rewinding to my bio, so I am a Peruvian American. I was born here in the States. All of my family is South American, and I lived in Peru every summer. English is technically my second language. It's my dominant language at this point. But culturally, I was raised just being Peruvian. I'm white on my mother's side, but she passed before I knew her. So I was raised, my identity has always been I'm Peruvian. And I'm 5'9", white skin, green-eyed, natural auburn hair. I don't look like a Peruvian. Everybody else is like 4'11" and brown and like very barrel-chested. And shockingly, my grandfather was full Andean, indigenous. So I'm a quarter indigenous, as you can tell from my complexion.
Oh yeah, beautiful.
But getting back to your question, why should people not assume that I'm just a white person? I think we shouldn't assume that about anybody. I think about Obama. President Obama was half Black, but everybody's just like, he's a Black president, he's a Black president, because there's so much, Black folks have to deal with so much in the United States, and they have the odds stacked against them. And they're like, oh, look, a Black, well, he's also half white. So like, why didn't that make the conversation? You know, it never really did.
Mhm.
And so as we progress forward in time, more and more of us are just going to be mixed, and that's great, because hopefully it will take care of some of the racism in the world. You know, I'm sure that's not the end all be all cure, but getting mixed babies out there like us, it's only helping.
I'm sure, you know, but then you just revert to classism, or, you know.
Oh yeah,
you
yeah.
just think-
Like
There's
in
so
Peru,
many ways. There's
just
so
gotta
many ways
figure out ways to,
to be a jerk. To
yeah,
be
you gotta figure out ways to make yourself feel better than everybody else. So
it's a shame, like being so white passing in Peru. I was not permitted to learn Quechua, which is our indigenous language, which is what my grandfather spoke, because I was too white. So they wanted me to only speak, you know, Castilian, which is like the fancy Spanish.
yeah.
And I wasn't even like, my grandmother, if I started speaking in slang in Spanish, she'd slap me.
Wow.
She'd say, "Eres muy blanquita para eso. You're too white to be speaking like that."
Whoa.
So from the get-go, it was just like very much, we're gonna put you on a pedestal because of your complexion, because you're the lightest one out of the whole family, and you're gonna take us into like another level socially or some bullshit. It's fucking weird, man.
Wow.
So they wanted for you to pull them out of poverty with your white skin? Is
Not poverty necessarily, but I mean, they did get me into modeling very, very young. And it wasn't necessarily about the money, it was more about the status.
Oh, wow. Wow.
intense.
Yeah.
So Eerie, tell us about your story.
Oh
Yeah.
God, I have the opposite story, guys.
Yeah, you do.
I do. I have if you've ever heard my stand-up, I don't know if Luma has. I actually grew up thinking I was half Mexican, and then found out later in life that I wasn't. My dad, he actually adopted me. My mom was actually married to somebody else, my actually white dad who's on here. And she was married to him, and that's my biological father. And then my mom married who I call brown dad. I know this is so weird. It's not even a joke. It's in my phone like that. White dad and brown dad. I know it's so weird. It's so weird. So then I found out later in life, I did an ancestry.com, and everybody had kind of been giving me hints for a long time that that wasn't really my dad. But I thought, and I fought hard, man. I was like, no, I'm Latina. Fuck you. Like, I was like hard about it. Like, you know, I'm Latina too. Like, to my brown dad's side of the family, they'd be like, oh, you little white girl. And I'd be like, what are you talking about? I'm half Latina, you know, fuck you. Like, I was like fighting hard for this. And then I find out like later on in my life, no, you're not. You're from every white place in the world. Like, I'm not, I'm literally from all the white, like, name a white place. I'm probably from there. Like England, Ireland, like France, like every Scotland, like everywhere where you will find white people, I'm from there. Even like Eurotrash, I'm part Eurotrash. Like,
It said that on your,
ridiculous.
what percent? You're
it's very small. It's very small. It's like 6%, and I'm somewhere like,
garbage.
yeah, like, well, you know, like all the like Yugoslavia, used to be Yugoslavia, those kind of areas where it's kind of like white, but it keeps changing. It's all weird. I'm got like a little bit of that too. So it's like everything, but it's all white. There's nothing. There's no like percent that was ever anywhere that wasn't white. And like, I've been fighting for this thing my whole life. And now I'm like, oh, I was just kidding. I'm sorry. Like, you know, and it's terrible. It's fine, but it's terrible because it's just, I mean, it gave me a really good bit for stand-up. But other than that, it's really weird because like, And there's people that I haven't even told about it. It's what they haven't seen my stand-up. They know now. But I'll get off stage and people will be like, that really happened to you? And I'm like, yeah, that really happened to me, you know? And and it is 100% true too, that when I told my mom actually said, you know, DNA tests are usually wrong. And I was like, Mom, you need to tell the
absurd.
police. Yeah, you need to tell the
That's
police about
commitment.
that.
That is commitment.
The courts are using that. You need to say something because yeah, it was just ridiculous. So yeah, and then I went and found my white dad, and white dad's actually dope. So it worked out great. But it's a thing that I went through, and it's weird. It's like the exact opposite of what you guys have gone through. It's just like, no, I am part this. Like I was fighting like you guys.
Well, I think it's the same situation.
It's
you
the
know?
same in a lot of ways. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the hard part, Eerie, is that like when you finally find out, you can't be like, I'm white and I'm proud. You know, you can't be like that. You can't be like that. You're like, you can't. I mean, you're in a weird position.
Yeah.
Where you were fighting for this ethnic identity that you had been given. You had been given the ethnic identity.
Yeah.
And to take that away, you can't really own whiteness in the same way. You know what I mean? You can't be proud. You have to be kind of apologetic, but you didn't do anything wrong. You know what I mean? Like that's the frustrating part, is like you didn't do anything wrong.
I'm also not like so much of one thing that I can be like, yay, I'm Irish, or like, yeah, I'm like so mixed that there's no like, oh, I'm French, you know, or anything. I don't know why I had to do that voice when I said
You suck at being French.
no, I don't. Are you kidding? When I was little, I thought if you spoke in a French accent, you were actually speaking French.
That's the colonizer in you.
That was from Pepe Le Pew. I watched Pepe Le Pew, and I was like, "Oh, mama, you do not understand." And she was like, "You're not speaking French." I'm like, "Oh, but I am." You know, she's not as not. But yeah, it's. But you know, the thing is, I think it's funny because I never hung my hat on my whiteness. I always hung my hat on like, yeah, but I'm part Latina, so that makes me cool. And like, and then it was just like, and then it's all the other things like, and I also like music, and I'm cool, and I like, and all the things that make you who you are. But it's just weird when it's like you're trying to make that part of your identity and it's actually not, you know. I just think it's interesting, you know, and everyone.
I mean, it still is your identity. If you had members of your family that were not non-white, that's your family. Like that's so that's still a part of who you are, even if it's not in your physical blood. It's what you're surrounded by.
Right. Yeah. And like my little sister is actually brown dad and my mom's actual biological kid. So she's half Mexican, and like I have a brother, you know, it's just, but it's.
So you have two siblings that are half Mexican?
Two siblings. Well, my brother isn't actually blood related. He's brown dad's son with somebody else.
Okay.
Not my mom, but I consider him my brother. And honestly, you know what's weird? He doesn't even know about this whole thing. I don't have the heart to tell him that brown dad's actually not my biological father. Because I think he'd be crushed, you know? So it's a really weird thing. Like,
how old is he?
Really weird thing. Oh, he's in his 30s, but I don't know.
I think you should tell him. I think you should tell him, you know?
I just don't tell him, just send him a link to this. Just like
I think I might just do that. Yeah.
I just feel like, so my parents didn't tell me till I was 19 that my father wasn't my natural father.
Whoa. Wow. Okay, wait. What? Who were you raised by then?
It's very complicated. You ready to hear the complicated?
Yeah.
Okay.
Got a flow chart or something?
I'm going to show you. Okay, so my parents were together since they were 14 years old. They're engaged. They got in a fight. My mom was with some other dude from work one time. Got pregnant.
Oh.
And she told my dad, who raised, these are my parents. She told my dad, like, I don't know who I'm pregnant by. And he said, I don't care. We're going to get married and this is going to be our baby, which is pretty romantic.
What an awesome dude.
Yeah.
And so then I was born. So the other guy's totally out of the picture, right? So then I was born. They got married 3 months pregnant with me. I was born. And babies are like kind of ambiguous looking. So they thought I was his until I was 2. So they thought I was his child till I was 2. And then they gave birth to 2 super Asian babies.
Whoa.
And then my eyes are light and my hair was basically blonde. And they had 2 super Japanese looking babies. And they were suddenly like, oh, she's the other guy's kid. And so it's kind of, like, it's hard to talk about ethnic identity without sounding racist, but in Japanese culture, you don't talk about problems. You don't talk about problems, you save face, right? So they just didn't talk about it. My parents just wanted to never tell me. And then I had a psychologist who forced my parents to admit it to me and my brother and sister.
Wow.
And so I grew up 100% being 3/4 Japanese. My mom's half Japanese. My dad who raised me, I call dad, right? He's my real dad. He's the one who raised me. Your real dad is the one who sticks around, in my opinion.
Right.
Yes.
So, so culturally, I'm Japanese. So I look like a white person, but culturally, everyone around me looks Japanese. So, when I was 19, my mom finally admitted to me. Finally. And she tried to leave the room. I'm like, but what is my ethnic background? And she's just like, you're Cuban, and like ran away.
Wow.
And so I was raised in a part of Orange County that a lot of people were Vietnamese and a lot of people were Mexican, but I didn't know a single Cuban. I mean, there's not a ton of Cubans in Orange County, right? There's just not a ton. And so I was just like, I'm Cuban? And then she told me his name, but she misspelled it. So I have everyone on Google memorized with his name that I thought it was spelled. And I finally just went crazy in my 30s. And I'm like, I can't take it anymore, not knowing this guy. And my husband at the time was like, let's follow up on those leads that you didn't. I had like 2 people I didn't follow up with that could have maybe helped me find him. And then I followed up with some leads. And the first time I heard my biological father's voice was on my 35th birthday. Oh. He called me during my 35th birthday party. And then I flew out like within like a week or 2 to go meet him. He was in Florida, like a Cuban should be. And it was so funny because like so I grew up looking at my mirror, face in the mirror, like, who is that person, right? And when I met him, I was like, oh, he looks just like me. He looks just like me. And then I met his mother. She looked like a little old lady version of me. And she was in a little pink robe. And I was like, oh, pink's my favorite. And she's like, me too. Like my house everything's pastel pink. When I went to her house, she had like, everything was pink. The walls were pink. The bathroom was pink. She had these pink champagne glasses I really wanted. It's weird, the biology of I'm just like her and I never met her, Yeah. And then when I met my brother through, I call him Gus, that's his first name. He's not dad. He's the person I'm curious about, but is not my father. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
When I
did he know you existed?
He wasn't sure because my mom lied.
Oh, okay.
So he gets off the hook a little bit for my mom lying, but he's not all the way off the hook. I look just like him. Like my personality's pretty similar as well. Wow. So I'm like this gregarious Cuban child with like super serious, quiet, shy Japanese siblings. So like, it's like really obvious. It's super obvious. It's weird my parents lied about it because it was so obvious to everyone who looked at me. Anyways, when I met my brother through Gus, I asked him, like, can I come over and make you and your wife brunch? And when I got there, I got out this pan and I put it on the thing. And he's like, why didn't you tell me? And he pulled out the same pan. He had the same pan. He had the same sink. And I custom put a sink in my apartment. Like I redo my kitchen because I love cooking. And when I looked in his cupboards, he had 10 kinds of oils and 15 kinds of vinegar. Like we had so much, we were like twins. Wow. And we had been raised completely separately with separate parents. We were both the oldest of 3. So he's the oldest of 2 other siblings. And then I had 2 through my father, So, but anyways, meeting my brother Adam, I was just like, do I make any decisions myself or is it just my genes? Like that's how similar he is to me. And I love him so much. And then after I met him, I cried for days because I'm like, what would it have been like if I could have had him as a brother growing up, right? Like I could have maybe seen him in the summers, blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? Like that. So there's kind of that, but there's just like, his wife is from Mexico. Oh, that's the other thing. We both married people from other countries. We both like, he said he thinks about getting rid of all his furniture and buying brand new furniture on a regular basis. But then his wife is like, but I ask him, will it make you happy? And I was like, I just told my husband at the time to tell me, just say, will it make you happy?
Wow.
So we have like this restless quality. We shop the same, like, so it's like, it's fascinating. Like what I'm saying is like DNA is really strong. Nature versus nurture. Nature is really strong. But, you know, like I said, at the same time, I was raised with very serious Japanese values of like precision and reliability and like respect and like not getting too emotional. So his wife that's from Mexico was like, when he's talking to his friends, she'll be like, why are you guys fighting? And he's like, we're not fighting, we're talking. Because like Cubans tend to scream when they talk.
Latins across the board.
And I'm like, I've gotten that note before that I'm a little too loud. Like, so it was like a relief to meet that whole family. So yeah, and again, it seems racist, but like I'm really good at dancing. I can't help it. Like,
racist stereotype, but you know.
Yeah, you're right, stereotype.
That's so funny. Now so the reason my mom got away with it was because I look like my mom in a lot of ways. But then it turns out I look a lot like my dad too. So
oh really?
But what are you gonna do? It's really interesting that you had the same kind of weird thing that happened to me too. It's
and it's just like I don't know, like in a lot of ways because I look white, but I like kind of have like I feel like when you're white and raised as a white person, it might be hard to put yourself in the shoes of other people because you just don't know that other people have such a different experience. But because I look white, so in a lot of ways I am white because I'm perceived as white and I'm treated with white privilege, right? So in some ways it's fair to just say I'm white because I'm not. People accuse my sister of stealing because she looks Japanese. You know what I mean? Like when we're teenagers, like, or
that's
people would.
The opposite. Japanese people don't steal things.
That's true in Japan. You're right. But I'm just saying.
In Japan, I mean,
people were racist to her face.
Oh my God.
Even though we were raised in the same house with the same money, with the same parents, the same cars gifted to us when we were 16. Like everything was the same, but because she looks Japanese, she has a totally different experience than I do. Wow, she's just afraid to go to the middle of the country. You know, like she doesn't look white.
I have a story about that actually, about racism and white passing at the same time. So I unfortunately, we all end up with like a bad roommate, right? So I let this girl move in. I know she's a stripper, so I'm like, no big deal. I do burlesque. It's not that different. Turns out she had a massive cocaine problem. And she got pregnant right away, like right as she moved in. So I'm like, fuck, I'm seeing her do lines of cocaine while like 3 weeks pregnant. I'm like, you gotta go. Like, we can't have hard drugs in the house. Like, if it's not hallucinogenic, I don't want it in the house. I have a line and you have white lines, and that's not okay. And so she lost her mind like you wouldn't believe and called the police on me multiple times. She said, I have the transcript from the 911 call. My Mexican roommate is threatening me with knives.
Oh my God.
So she had a 5-year-old she had partial custody of. So she's a pregnant lady with a 5-year-old in tow. My Mexican roommate's trying to stop me. OPD fucking kicked in the third roommate's door with guns. Not kidding. With guns. They're like, where's Luma at? And he's like, how the fuck should I know? She doesn't live in my room. And then I came out and they took one look at me and they said, oh, she must not have done it because I'm white passing.
Oh no.
And to be fair, I had not threatened anybody with knives, but.
Wow. And see, there's an irony there too, because I have thrown a knife at somebody before.
That's just part of your cultural identity.
Yeah, I think that was part of my upbringing.
I feel like, Eerie, that was cultural appropriation.
I know, I'm so sorry.
Canceled. You're canceled.
I'm so sorry. I was so canceled. That's just terrible. Oh my God. Isn't that crazy though? Like, it's just.
Yeah, they let her go because she looks white. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
she didn't do it, but also they're like, oh, it wasn't you. You look white.
But just because I have a fair complexion, I could still threaten you with a knife. It's not fair to say.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's really crazy.
Wow.
But, I mean, it's exactly you're supporting what I was saying with like people are mean to my sister, even though we have the same parents, the same life, basically, but she just doesn't look like a white person. So, like, I mean, I'm sure you both feel this way. I'm not going to take a scholarship for being non-white. You know what I mean? Like, because I don't suffer the same prejudice as other people do who look like you. You know what I'm saying? I hate the word race so much because I feel like it's a way to like treat people like they're subhuman, right? Mm-hmm. There's like, I hate the word biracial so much, but but it's so hard to talk about this topic without using those words, right? Like, it's so hard it's hard to say anything without just sounding racist,
Yeah. Well, and like, yeah, I mean, I'm so mixed up. I'm many racials, but it's all from white places, so it doesn't really matter. No one cares.
So, but even that, Eerie, even that. So if you're in Ireland, you know how Protestants and Catholics like kill each other. So people who are Catholic, Irish Catholic, sometimes refer to themselves as Black, like that they're the Blacks of Ireland, right? Like, and a lot of the singing and marching in the streets, they adopted African American songs and marches and stuff like that, or like rhetoric. And so I think Americans look at that and they're just like, why are white people killing other white people? But it's not white people killing white people, as far as we don't divide people the same way as other people do.
And this is why I say, when you go to countries that you have a bunch of people and a lot of people all look the same, but now we can't put ourselves above you because you look like me. So we're going to create a caste system or a class system or a tribe system or a race or a religion thing, or people are always trying to figure out a way to one up each other to the point where so that they can feel better about themselves than somebody else, put somebody else down, step on them so they can feel better. And
so I'm just saying you're European when it all be considered white is what I'm saying. So
And
So-
plus they would never, I wouldn't be accepted anywhere. I mean, that's just the truth, because
Yeah, that's
too mixed up. So,
mixed.
and
is-
I'm also American, so why would you want me there?
So let me tell you
I'm a
something
flag.
kind of funny about kind of dark but kind of funny. So the Plessy versus Ferguson, one drop of African heritage and you're considered black. That's like the
Yeah.
law, right? Like
Right.
one drop. So yeah, if you use that as a frame of reference, Obama is black. But
Right.
but we don't have to use that rule just because it's the law, right? We could be like, well, we could see he's half black and half white, right? Like we could see that. But and then different when you're Irish American, they weren't considered white until like the 20s or 30s. Italian Americans weren't considered white for a long time as well. And then, there's the white category gets bigger in the US, right? But the funny, apartheid in South Africa, that maybe arguably the most racist, terrible time and place, I would be considered 100% white because Chinese people were considered black and Japanese people were considered white.
Wow.
And Mexicans were considered black, but Cubans were considered white.
Wow.
So being Japanese Cuban, I would be 100% white. I wouldn't have been in the mixed category of like the Cape colored category. I would, because there was like the black, white, and the mixed category. I would be, it's like so stupid because here I'm not, right? Like if you're Cuban, you're not considered white necessarily in the US.
No, especially, never mind, I'm not gonna say that.
And then even my Irish, even the part of me that's Irish is Protestant and not Catholic. So in some ways I am 100%, I don't feel white. I don't feel better than anybody else. I don't, you know what I'm saying? Like I don't identify with people who are so like narrow-minded and they're like, why do people complain? Nothing's wrong with it. Like people who think there's a level playing field. I can't relate to that. I can't relate to people who are white and feel like everything's fair. People should stop whining. Like I don't feel
that just boils back down to guilt. Nobody wants to feel bad. They didn't personally do whatever their ancestors did. And why should I be held accountable? And my life experience is automatically everybody else's. So if you're saying that you're constantly being put down, that's in your head,
Yeah. Well, you should
in their opinion.
But that's the thing is like, so all of us have people, we're part of families that are different colors and shapes and everything. And I think that it makes you more aware of what's going on in the world, and then, like I'm married to a brown person and I did grow up kind of not really realizing what was going on and being like really surprised at the things he told me, like, oh my God, that's so unfair. He's like, well, yeah, dude, that's the world. I'm like, holy shit, like really surprised and really opened my eyes. Cause I really was one of those like, oh, come on, not anymore. That's not like that, and like, and it was really stupid of me to even think that way. But it's just funny because I think that you don't think there's racism unless you have people around you that are different colors, and then you see what they go through, and you're like, oh shit, why are you scared? We're just getting pulled over by the cops. It's no big deal. Like, no, it's a big fucking deal. Like, you know what I mean? Hands on the steering wheel, no sudden movements. I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm like, hey cop, what's up? Like, no, what are you doing? You don't talk to him. You don't roll down the window. You don't do anything until he tells you. I'm like, what are you talking about? What's up, man? How you doing? Like, oh shit, was I speeding? Bad me. You know what I mean? And it's just like, the fuck are you doing, dude? Like,
it's hard to know if you haven't like experienced it. Yeah, totally.
Exactly. And that's when you start to realize then, and that's why it's kind of like you're trying to explain to people like, no, don't you understand? Like, this is a thing. Like, this is a real fucking thing.
Yeah,
like,
I feel like some way people think this is post-racism America. Like they think we're past racism and we're not. We're not. I mean, I whine about feeling not really accepted anywhere. I'm mixed, so I don't feel quite accepted by Japanese Americans. I don't quite feel accepted by white Americans. But as much as I whine, I have a friend who's half black, half white, and people look at him like, how dare you be black in front of me? And no one looks at me like that. You know what I mean? Like, he's not doing anything wrong. He's well-dressed, he's clean, he's not doing anything wrong, but just people look at him like, how dare you be black in front of me? So like, as much as I whine, like, I kind of have no right. The aggression towards me is so small compared to, he might get shot for being black.
The aggression towards you might be small, but it doesn't make it right.
That's true.
I would hope that we all want to get to a place where everybody's treated well, everybody's treated equally, like the merit of our character and all of that, and the fact that both of you are like, oh, I thought this, but then I met somebody and saw their situation and it changed your mind. That doesn't make you, it's not like you were stupid before, you were simply ignorant. And then you were presented with information which you immediately accepted. You didn't continue to try to deny it. And you changed your worldview and you became more empathetic. And I think that that's what's missing in a lot of people, is the ability to learn new things and the ability to have empathy for what's actually going on, for what other people are going through, for the shit that you never have to face. It doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
Right. And I will say on a flip side of that too, I think as women, we understand a certain amount of the shit that we have to go through as being women. And the funny thing is, my husband, who's brown, he always sticks up for the fact that but you're also a woman and you have to deal with a whole different set of bullshit, and somebody who is ethnic and a woman has to deal with both sides of the bullshit. And it's just fucked up, and it's like, but it's cool because he kind of saw what it was like, just little weird shit that I would do. Like, I always lock my door, before you get out of the car, you always look around, all this crazy stuff that I do, just being a woman, he's like, why do you do that? I'm like, because I'm a woman. You don't just jump out of your fucking car. Anybody could be there. You look around, you make sure that you're safe. You have your phone in your hand, you have your key in your hand. You don't, you know what I mean? And he's just like,
men don't always know. Yeah, men don't always know that when women walk in a room, we're assessing the likelihood of being raped or murdered in that room. You know what I mean? It's just then it doesn't occur to them because they don't have the smaller body, or they don't have, you know what I mean? Typically smaller body, or just the lack of justice in our country.
Right. Exactly. And the weird aggression, when I tell people, it's not like I'm a big, I want to tell you being a woman, but it's just the little things women, the number one way we get murdered is by someone that we love. Do you understand that? Number one thing that kills us is
dudes.
A man.
Fucking dudes, man. It's usually a white dude.
It's a dude. And it's not even a dude. And it's not like a dude we don't know, like a lurking murderer. It's a lot of times the dude you're with, or you know what I mean? It's just again, all of us, we're older. I'm much older than you guys, but you're older. You're old enough to have probably experienced a whole bunch of bullshit in your life, small aggressions, big aggressions, terrible things that probably already happened to all of us. We're at an age now when, of course, we've already been abused. And the idea that a lot of guys are just what? That sounds crazy.
It's totally
no,
not.
It's totally not crazy. And it can be anything. It can be, I remember when I worked at Nordstrom's and I would cut through the shoe stock room, and the shoe guys would be in the aisle, and they, instead of walking out of the aisle so I could walk past them, they would squish up against the aisle, so I would have to brush past them, and I would
Like
just be
brush
like,
against the front of their bodies.
exactly, and I would always just be
Gross.
like, fuck you, don't make me go to HR. And they'd be like, oh God, and run off. And I'm just like, dude, what kind of, and it's just the littlest, I'm talking about the smallest thing you could think of happening to you. You know what I mean? It's like, that is like the smallest thing you can think of happening to you. Like, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. But
I had a similar experience. So we're practicing CPR and whatnot, and the other kids are a 17, 16-year-old white males. And we're practicing taking the carotid pulse and then like palpating the chest for like a heartbeat. And they full on grabbed me inappropriately, and they literally were not being skeezy, they weren't being gross, they weren't being anything. And the kid has his hand here, and I said, yo, you just sexually assaulted me. And he goes, oh my God. Like, looked like he was gonna cry, because it never occurred to him for whatever reason that, you know, he shouldn't touch my boobs, because that is where my heart is, it's here. And so he was thinking anatomically.
it's, you guys all know, I mean, we go through it all the time. Like, I got introduced one time on stage as it was like and she's beautiful and fuckable. That's like, I was like, but not, and then of course, and then I got on stage and just shredded the fuck out of him. I was like, but not you, like, you know. It was just ridiculous.
Never
like,
you.
Never you, like, you know. But yeah, it was just, but it's just so stupid, and it's like, I don't know. I'm just, I don't know. I'm sorry.
Well, I think that it boils down to the dehumanization of your fellow person.
Yeah.
So is this person an object? You know, the dehumanization of African peoples who were stolen, brought to this land, and they literally told each other that they were bestial and they liked working in the fields, and that now, like, women, like, we exist for the gratification of men in some people's views, and so we're not like an entire person that thinks and feels and has all these things going on. We're not complex creatures. You know, it just it boils down to the people who have control, who have historically been rich white men, and who they want to subjugate in order to be higher up, you know. And I hope that we can just, I don't know what's going to happen to our fucking economy here in the United States, but it looks like it's going to fucking fall apart. So what's going to happen? What does your ideal apocalypse look like? Like, if all of our shit falls apart and we have to build anew, what does that look like to you guys? Orchid, I'm going to you. What do you think?
Well, no, I have Eerie. Are you asking us what our ideal state would be if we had to rebuild, or what do you think the worst case scenario is if we rebuild? Which one are you asking?
Let's say if we rebuilt and you were the singular person that got to say, this is the structure of what we're going to do. We're no longer like capitalist society or democracy or XYZ. Like, what would you do if you were building from scratch?
So I think that I don't think we do need to go from scratch first, but I'll still answer the question. We don't need, I feel like there's a lot of salvageable things. And I think no matter what, there's some level of democracy. So when, I can't remember the name of the case, but do you remember when it was like that dad and son who killed a random black man, and then in one day of Instagramming, everyone called the police till they got arrested? Do you remember when that happened, like right before the riots? Or the protests? They weren't riots, they were protests. That gave me so much hope. That gave me so much hope, because in a way, if we just keep, if no one will put up with it, it won't happen. Do you know what I'm saying? I mean, the structures are in place to keep racism and sexism and classism. But if we all decide we're not putting up with the shit anymore, we can stop it as a group. There's this, have you seen March of the Penguins? Yeah. So the penguins are like marching, right? And they have a little egg. So each couple penguin are like next to each other. There's a little egg by their feet. And one of the eggs rolls away from the feet, and you just see the egg freeze and crack. And the mom penguin is so upset that her baby's dead, right? She tries to steal another egg from another penguin couple.
Wow.
And you feel for her, right? That's sad, poor penguin girl, right? Woman. I don't know, female penguin. But then when she goes for
I'm triggered that you called her a girl.
when she goes for somebody else's egg, she tries and gets somebody else's egg. The other penguins charge her and are like, don't you dare take that other person's egg. Don't you dare take that. And I'm just like, yeah, penguins don't have arms. And they were still able to stand up to, we know you're sad, but don't take someone else's egg, right? They don't have arms. They don't have guns. And they were still able to, as a group, protect the rules. And I feel like, I've dealt with some pretty serious death threats, sexual assault, a long list of dealing with police and judges and things like that. I have so much of that. And going through that, I'm like, there's so much darkness in the world. Mm-hmm. I don't like that someone was able to do these bad things to me and hire a female lawyer who stalked me, who was liking my Instagram posts, you know what I mean? Like doing weird stuff to like mess with my head. And I'm like, these are dark things. These are very negative things. But I had hundreds of people on my side trying to help me, and hundreds of people that came out of nowhere to be like, I will help you as a lawyer for free. Or I had people being like, I will be a witness about domestic violence for you. Or I will, you know what I mean? Like I had people come out of nowhere. And so I think that there is a lot of good in the world. And I think all of us need to, as individuals, kind of take responsibility. If we see something wrong, we need to speak up.
Yeah.
If we see something wrong, we need to speak up. We need to help each other out and just not put up with it. Just not put. So now, like, now that I'm like, understand the patterns of why someone is an abuser, like, or how they're an abuser, it's about, like you said, it's about a belief that it's okay to hit someone.
Right.
If someone hits their spouse, it's not because they're mentally ill. It's not because they're hungry. It's not because of their mom. It's not because they're mad at their ex. It's because they have a belief it's okay to hit another person.
Yeah.
And so counseling won't help. No. So women are like, if I could just get them to counseling, or men are like, whoever the abused spouse or partner, they're like, if I could just get him or her to go to counseling, it's not going to work. They have a belief in like the hard drive of their brain, like they believe it's okay. You can't talk them out of that with any amount of therapy. So this guy in a dating app asked me out, and I was like, can we just get coffee? Because that's like public place, short, so I could get away if I need to. And then he started being like, well, no, that's boring. I would die of boredom if we went to coffee. And he's like, I want to do something all day. And I'm like, well, I'm not comfortable with that.
Yeah.
And then I was like, okay, well, this is not going to work out. I hung up the phone. He started texting me on repeat. And I was like, do not contact me again. He started sending me doctor's appointment notifications. Like he started sending me Cash App requests. Like he stalked me right away. But like, so I went to the police right away and told on him, right? And one of my friends was like, Orchid, you're like a magnet. And I'm like, no, nothing I did was my fault.
No.
And I'm like, I'm not a magnet. It's just, this is what a lot of women do.
It's just that prevalent. It's just that
prevalent that, yeah, it's just that prevalent. But it's kind of like, I think a lot of times as women, especially, but probably men as well, we're trained to be nice.
Yeah.
We're trained to think of the best of others, and it really messes us up. Like, I am willing to say, there are some people who are bad and want to hurt me. But I used to be like, no one wants to hurt me. Belle is so pretty. She's just so pretty. A kidnapper turns into a prince.
Yeah.
You know, like,
when you
but he had a library.
When you break down Disney shit, it's like so fucking weird. Like,
yeah.
Who wrote it?
destroy
White
a,
Christian men back in
Yeah,
the day.
it's like destroy a Disney movie. You know what I mean? And that's my new thing I'm gonna put on Insta. I'm gonna destroy a Disney movie by breaking.
I just feel like I have a stand-up joke about how she should be doing push-ups, Belle should be doing pull-ups, she should be fashioning a shiv to kill the beast. But what
She needs to be the Sarah Connor.
the
of
Sarah
this
Connor,
Disney
exactly.
fucking
That's what I'm
movie.
going for. But what is she doing? She's wearing a yellow dress and eating gourmet food. Like what? She's calming him down because she's so pretty. Like that's stupid.
She's
But
talking
anyway,
to a teapot. Something's wrong.
so the teapot as well is a mother and throwing another woman under the bus. She's like, look the other way.
Okay.
I don't want to be a pot anymore.
Oh my God, this has gone off the rails.
So I feel like I just want to train every child to kill the beast. You know what I mean? Like every child should know these are the abusive behaviors you should look out for. Do not talk to people if they're willing to hurt you. If they think it's fun to hurt you, don't talk to them.
So
anymore.
many more insane. I mean, I don't. We could tear Disney apart all day long, but
We could.
but actually that's not the worst thing in the world.
So how do you rebuild the world, Eerie?
Oh, you guys don't want to talk to me about this.
Oh, yes, we do.
I actually, I know it sounds really ridiculous, but like, except for the fact that people are so far apart on what they believe, which upsets me that it's like, you know, I hate this person because they think this way, or I hate this person because they voted this way. I have a lot of family that like doesn't go the way I go when it comes to stuff, but I don't hate them. That's just whatever. What you do, you. I'm gonna do me. You know what I mean? They've always accepted me for who I am. You know, whatever, red hair and tattoos and everything. They've always accepted me. They didn't care. I feel like as a country, we're actually, as weird as it's gonna sound really weird, we're getting stronger and stronger. And I know everybody doesn't believe me, but it's like, it's more and more like not okay to be a fucking asshole. You know what I mean? And we can destroy you. And the world is so much more, I know it sounds really weird. No one's going to believe me. The world is actually so much more connected than it used to be. And people, and I like, there's good things and bad things about it. The thing about capitalism, guys, I'm on an Apple computer right now on my internet Wi-Fi that I bought with money from my job at the credit union. And, you know, people have to go to their jobs and sell things to make money to come to see me do comedy. And I'm not going to shit on capitalism. Somebody made my phone, somebody made all my stuff, and then I bought it. And then, you know, like, whatever. But I do feel like people, more than ever, the coolest thing about right now is that more than ever, so many people have a voice. And whether you agree with it or not, everyone is able to express how they feel and what their point of view is, even if you don't agree with it. And I think that that's the coolest thing about this time right now, is that everybody can get a voice. Because again, I am old, and I remember when we didn't have internet. And I remember when all you got to see was what the broadcasting networks wanted to put on the television, or what, you know what I mean? There was like a lot less independent labels, just putting your shit out there, doing a podcast and putting it, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, there was so much more that we can do now. If you want a show and no one will book you, make your own show. Like, there was a time when that was not a thing, you know? And so I think it's really fucking cool. I think this world seems really crazy right now. The pandemic definitely made it even extra crazy. But I really feel like it's the coolest world I could live in right now, because there's so much coolness to it, as well as all the shit that comes along with it. But
Totally.
there's no
a lot of
good old days. The good old days were good old racist days, were good old sexist days, were good old fucked up days where like only the rich got to have a voice. And, you know, and I feel like, so I feel like right now is the coolest right now. It'll probably be much better in the future, or it could be much worse. but
So I don't know if you heard it. I'm guessing the Rams won because
good.
fireworks.
That's not nice.
I live in Los
It
Angeles.
is the superb owl. The superb
So
owl
it's getting crazy
celebration.
out there.
It's like fireworks happening. So I'm like, the Rams won.
They must have won then. Okay. I
So
watched the halftime show. It was pretty dope. It was really good.
So Luma, how would you describe rebuilding everything?
Yeah, Luma, quickly. We're almost out of time, but how would you do it?
If
What would
I
you
had the
do?
power to like rebuild the US or, just my little small area, it would definitely be a socialist structure.
Okay.
People would have access to college, and medical would be free, and food would be very accessible, and we would exist as a society in order to help each other as opposed to like getting as rich as possible. So it's not necessarily getting rid of currency and all that entirely, but just trying to be more helpful to my fellow human is kind of the goal.
And I do agree with that. I think there's some things that are inalienable rights, like education and medical attention. Those doesn't seem like that big of a huge leap to just give people that. But what are you going to do? But
it's radical in the time and place that we exist in right now. It's a radical idea that everybody should have access to that.
It's actually less radical than it was in the 80s when I was in high school, or in the 70s when I was a kid, and there was no that you guys realize this whole idea of being able to have something like affordable health care, like through California Care or something. That's a radical idea that was just barely happened like 10, 15 years ago. That would never happen. When I was in my 20s, I didn't have healthcare until I was like 32, because I just didn't have a job that had it, and I just didn't have any. So I would go to Planned Parenthood, and that was it. Who knows like what could have happened to me, but I'm just saying like that, like so much has at least moving in that direction, because it was so much worse. And just to finish out real quick, I mean, this podcast went all over the place, and I'm happy that it did. Honestly, I really am. Deneen, did you have any questions? Deneen is my unofficial co-host. No, you're good. You're good. Okay. Luma, this has been awesome. I think we need to have a slumber party.
We could braid each other's hair and talk about civil rights.
Yeah. Thank you.
You should make a movie.
We could play with makeup and talk about human rights. I think that is the greatest night ever.
Okay, so you are going to star in it. Eerie and Luma braid each other's hair and talk about rights. And
I think that's going to be amazing.
It's going to be the Breakfast Club of the next generation.
I love it. I love it. So Luma, anything you want to, just last notes you want to say, anything you're performing, I know you do a ton of different things. So
I'm taking a break from the ton of different things.
Okay, good. Get yourself together. I am.
My closing out message is I hope all of you can find a way to be happy and healthy. That's what I want to go out on.
Yeah, and more love, man. Let's all love each other a little bit more. I agree completely.
Love each other, but don't take any shit. Just whatever your medium is.
And respect each other, It's just, oh, there's Grimes. There's my brown man right there that I love. And Orchid.
Yeah, I'm available to be hired for private parties and corporate events as a stand-up comic. And I also teach yoga. I'm doing a show tonight. I do a once a month open mic. You're always welcome to come. And follow me on Instagram. Reach out. Ask me any questions.
Thank you. Thanks, guys. Hey, guys, thank you so much for joining. Jason, I really appreciate you coming and supporting. And Deneen, thank you. Ellie, I appreciate you coming and supporting. My dad, of course. And my best friend Bob is here too. Thanks, guys. Let's do this really quick. All right, this has been another terrible podcast by comics. Thank you so much to stand-up comedian Orchid Cameron and Yoga. She's probably bendy. I don't know. And thank you so much, Luma Jaguar, who is a performer in every sense of the word. I am Eerie Diamond. Thank you guys so much, and see you guys next time. Bye.
Okay, bye. Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Bye, guys.
Guys.